past year and a half, I devoted myself to an experiment. I went to the best universities in all of the major cities in China and taught some of the most thoughtful and passionate students in college. And I did nothing but providing them with the most basic tools of creative expression and challenging them to talk about and only talk about their most fundamental concerns. After a few days of highly intensified creative process, I would invite an audience, put on a showcase, and wait to be surprised. A lot of people call what I do English public speaking training. I call it differently. There is a fancier term for that. I call it creative empowerment within a global context. Christine is one of the most interesting speakers I had. In her speech, she shared with her audience her very memorable and personal experience with self-discovery. 6 months ago, she discovered a small lump in her private parts. She was in both panic and pain and shame. No, not pain. She was in both panic and shame. So it took her weeks to finally go to the gynecologist until she thought it must be a tumor and it couldn't wait. It turned out it wasn't a tumor. Christine wasn't sick. The doctor only told her it was part of her body and refused to tell her anything more. She went to her parents. Her parents were also reluctant to tell her what it was. Why is everyone acting so weird? Without any other options, Christine was left to find out the answer on her own. Eventually, with the help of internet search engines, she found the surprising answer. It was her clitoris. Apparently, she didn't even know she had a clitoris, or what a clitoris was. And in that rural village in Guangdong province, no one thought it was appropriate to tell her, not even her mother. So she had to live in fear and shame for months just because of that misunderstanding. It was also a surprise to me because I never could have imagined what Christine had to offer. Before hearing her speech, I only remembered her diligence, her curiosity from regular classroom interactions. To me, she wasn't any different from all the other hardworking girls that I taught. But her powerful presentation not only helped me learn more about her, Christine, but also China. China not as an abstract concept, but as a collection of individual human beings with their respective trauma, ambition, and pain. I still remember the punchline in Christine's speech. She said, "It is not a tumor. This is the tumor." The societal tumor of treating sex as a taboo in many parts of China and the deprivation of common sense sex education was brought on stage and had a full-on confrontation with the audience as they were gradually introduced to Christine's clitoris. So the issue of sex education, just like any other social issues in China, needs refreshing and individualized perspectives, just like Christine's. Because the broad, overarching narrative is distant and desensitizing. When we recognize that certain issues are real and they affect everybody's lives, then we just can't afford not to tell important stories on stage. Because by humanizing issues, we make them relevant again. So it is time to bring public speaking back to public life in China. Why does it have to be public speaking? Why does it have to happen on stage? Because that impact is irreplaceable and unique. When Christine talked about her story, her message was immersive and overwhelming. Her face, her voice, her body, her clitoris was all part of her message. And when you see her in action on stage, there is an immediate impact which makes you feel personally responsible. It ultimately is about empathy, about adopting connections and responsibilities. I see her, I feel her. It's like I know her, and her problem becomes mine. So public speaking is irreplaceable because it has the potential to maximize your influence for positive change. That's why it's necessary. It also has the potential to fail. That's why it's fascinating. It doesn't always work. So this is my experiment. When I meet my students for the very first time, I have no idea what they have to say, what they have to share, what they have to offer. I just trust them to deliver that impact. I want to be surprised. By creatively empowering hundreds of young Chinese to share their most visceral experiences on stage and tackle social issues that they're most passionate about, I am so fortunate to have received the immense impact of their brilliance and sincerity over and over again. The topics vary from campus bullying to gender inequality, from date rape to cosmetic surgeries. I allow them the total liberty to choose the topic that they really want to talk about. No, actually I push them to do so. And I don't impose a fixed set of values so that the students can sometimes disagree. For example, Cindy talked about her determination to save her virginity before marriage and the ridicule and misunderstanding she had to receive. On the other hand, Emily decided to talk about her adventures on Tinder and why the slut-shaming that she had to face was in nature sexist. Their stories are equally true, equally important, and equally representative of a contemporary China. I believe that if we want the rest of the world to know more about China, we Chinese need to know more about China. And the very important first step is to recognize that we know little, that it is not enough to receive information passively from our highly centralized media. And if we really want change, there is an effort to be made. It certainly seems impossible to fully grasp China's complexity, contradictions, and perpetual overwhelming change. But there is something that we can all do. That is to initiate engaging, meaningful conversations with people around us, face to face, human to human, soul to soul. And for those conversations to be really open, really memorable, and really, really impactful, we need the stage. We need regular people on the stage. So when I talked about bringing back public speaking, I meant the format. Stage, audience, speaker, and PowerPoint, and power, and point. But I also meant something more. I meant a lot more. I believe that we should actively bring back certain elements intrinsic to public speaking to the public discourse of today's China. These elements are sincerity, creativity, and individuality. I'm aware that these elements may sound intuitive and rudimentary for you, but for most of my students who grew up in a test-oriented education system, which overemphasizes memorization and undervalues self-expression, it is a first-ever experience for them to have this total freedom to express what they really have to say, and to experiment with a limitless amount of ways of actually saying it on stage. That freedom is intimidating, because this time is different. There is no equations to memorize, there is no standard answers to fit, there is not even a pattern to follow. And it's just your ideas from your perspective in your voice. And it's way out of your comfort zone. So that is why I call what I do an experiment, because every effort is a challenge. It is a challenge to teach sincerity. It is a challenge to teach creativity. It is a challenge to teach individuality. And you know what? Challenge accepted. So let's start with sincerity. How do I teach sincerity? By always asking the students this question. Do you have something to say, or do you have to say something? If you have to say something, don't say it. Keep searching. If you have something to say, congratulations and good luck. Because you will never say it perfectly, but say it anyways. Say it with accuracy, say it with evidence, say it with an impact. The pressure inherent in this task typically makes the students nervous, excited, scared, and highly motivated. They would stay up all night in one hotel room, beating their brains out to create their works. The room is usually filled with laughter, cheers, supportive claps, and emotional tears. If you happen to stay in the same hotel, you would think that they're either high or crazy. I love driving my students crazy. I love watching them feel so unprecedentedly shitty about themselves and yet so hopeful when they find their message, when they have a creative breakthrough, when they call me up 3 in the morning telling me, I just had a new idea when I was taking a shower. I've decided to start all over again. Although most of them would consequently find that shower inspirations are highly unreliable, their genuine exhilarations remain a reminder that it feels good. It feels so insanely good to listen to yourself and find your voice. That is what I call empowerment. The second challenge is creativity. How do I teach creativity? For most of my students, the biggest obstacle to their creative success is the dependency on cliches. In our education system, cliches ensure scores. But when everybody uses them over and over again, year after year, you become dependent and unable to express anything without them. Tina is one of my students. Tina's mother has cancer. Tina had to suspend her studies to be with her for the very end of her journey. Tina decided to talk about it in her speech. She and I would have repeated discussions until late night because it's very hard to talk about death without cliches. She would be happy in heaven. She would be watching over me. She would find eternal peace. These are beautiful images, but Tina couldn't be satisfied because it was her mother. And she wanted it to be special. She needed it to be special. So together, she and I, we eventually found something. It is fresh and exciting. And it's something like this. Over the years, I have realized how much my mother has shaped who I am today. Her resilience, her kindness, her sense of humor have become my resilience, my kindness, and my sense of humor. And when her time on earth is over, she lives on in me. It was a beautiful moment, and the audience were deeply touched. But it also brought new understanding to my experiment. When we open up on stage and bring meaningful impacts to each other, we shape each other, and we live longer in each other. It is through Tina's creativity that her mother's journey was able to inspire so many to reach out and exert their influence. That is what I call empowerment. The ultimate challenge is individuality. How do I teach individuality? Actually, I don't. The students teach me by being fearless, unapologetic, and true. What I tell them is this: your speech is you. It says everything about you. And that's all I can ever give them. And then I just wait for stories to happen. And they happen. Sarah is a pretty college girl, but she's also different. Her facial features highly resemble those of the Chinese internet celebrities Wang Hong, famous for their identical face created by plastic surgeries. Sarah looks like that. So what happened to her was naturally gossip, stigma. There were rumors about her private life, about her relationship status, about how she pays her bills. Sarah came to me and told me that she wanted to talk about herself in her speech. More precisely, she wanted to talk about her face. More precisely, she wanted to talk about the surgery. It was a lot of pain. It was a lot of blood. She could feel her face being cut open. She could smell her skin tissues being burnt. She could see everything that was happening to her. With her eyes open, her heart pounding, and her dream coming true. She also wanted to talk about how she had to make this whole presentation to persuade her father to support her decision. She had to raise money for that. She had to plan and execute in absolute secrecy. She pushed everything through because she knew it would make her feel confident beautiful and invincible. And there she was asking me, should I talk about this topic? Is it really okay? And I was like, I honestly don't know. It's not my decision to make. I don't get to make these decisions. You do it. And surprisingly, they always decide to be true. I have had too many times, I've had students hugging each other after a speech because it was heartbreaking to see someone so courageous and so vulnerable. I have seen standing ovations and lasting cheers because of the witness of true character on stage. The students I had made me proud, made me surprised. Some of them made me cry. They have taught me so much more than I can ever teach them, and that is what I call empowerment. I remember before Christine went on stage, remember Christine? Clitoris? She happened to see me in the hallway and she stopped me and asked me a question about the rules. Can I show a picture in my speech? What is the picture of? It is part of the female body. I immediately realized what was happening, but I also didn't want to know for sure. Because like I said, I wanted to be surprised. So I didn't ask any question, I just told her this. I said to her, Christine, if you believe your audience should see it, show them and make them see. At the end of the day, I think it's public speaking is all about. Show them and make them see. My experiment is not done. I want to empower more people in China to get on stage and to speak with sincerity, creativity, and individuality. And if some people still don't get the point of doing it, I would have to do the same. I would have to show them and make them see. Thank you.